we got Michigan going to Ohio State. Big noon, Fox. Ohio State favored by 20.5. Now, the last time they played this game in Columbus, we were there, and this was the game where Donovan Edwards broke off 2 massive touchdown runs to finish that football game in the second half. Ohio State lacked an edge in that football game. That's a big reason, I think, why you've seen them attack the portal the way they have this last season. A big reason why I think you've seen them continue to push the envelope from a mentality perspective. I think it's a big reason why you see a lot of these guys on this roster for Ohio State that had a chance to go pro come back. Like Jack Sawyer has been very, very vocal about this. One of the stud defensive linemen for Ohio State. Like, I want Michigan, and I want them right now. Okay, so it's all teed up for them right now. By nature of it being a darn near 3-touchdown spread, like this is the spot now where Ohio State gets out the frustration of the last 3 years. They owe Michigan. I know it. You know it. I guarantee you Ohio State knows. I'll tell you this, too. If Ohio State gets up in this game, Will Howard's not coming out. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, they're staying in the ballgame. And Ryan Day is not going to just be content to sit back and run the football. They will run it up. Why? Because they feel like they owe them. And I think they'll give them their very best in that sense. Now, for Michigan, here's the dangerous part. Because, again, 20.5, new head coach. It's been a revolving door at quarterback for them this year. Injuries all over the place. We'll see where Colston Loveland is in this one. It sounds like Will Johnson, from what I understand, is maybe not the most likely to play. Again, it's Ohio State, Michigan. We'll see what happens. You have nothing to lose, which sounds bizarre to say out loud, but like legitimately, you have nothing to lose. This isn't the college football play-in game or playoff play-in game like it was a couple seasons ago or the past 2 seasons. Like, everyone and their mama is expecting Ohio State to win and cover. I'll say this. The most dangerous soldier in the world is the one with no fear and nothing to lose. And so they got a little bit of confidence after beating the brains in on Northwestern. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. Now, how to break this game down, we could pick Ohio State outright right now, and that wouldn't be a whole lot of analysis for you or a whole lot of value. I think for Michigan, the path to them pulling off the upset in Columbus, which if that happens, oh my gosh, that would be a very, very dark day in Columbus, very, very dark day for Ryan Day. But the path to them to win here is just doubling down on what's won them the game the last couple of seasons. Like Michigan, the reason why they have won this game is because they have been the more physical team. And yes, the quarterback isn't at the same level as a J.J. McCarthy. They don't have the same, I don't think, skill players on the perimeter as they had the last couple of years. But make no mistake, like if they're the more physical team in this game, they will have a very good chance to win. Which sounds bizarre to say out loud, I understand, but like I think the matchup that favors Michigan in this spot is still on the defensive line. Like Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, those are still 2, I think, NFL defensive tackles for you. Ohio State playing musical chairs on the offensive line. Like this is a chance now for Michigan to double down on what has worked for them the last couple of years and lean into their identity. Now, how Ohio State would lose then, I don't think so much that there is the same personnel. How am I trying to say this? The talent that Michigan has this year is not the same talent they've had last year or the past couple of seasons. For Ohio State, like you have the talent advantage in pretty much every single area. I mentioned the advantage for Michigan in the trenches there with the defensive line. Ohio State on the defensive line for themselves, they should still overwhelm Michigan. So how would Ohio State lose? Ohio State, the whole premise around this game for them is having that edge that they need to play with, because that's what's been missing for them. Like we talk about Michigan and their talent last year in the past couple of seasons, I still don't think they were all that much more talented than what Ohio State was. It wasn't like Ohio State was just somehow out there with a bunch of 3-stars and Michigan ran over them with their 5-stars. No, it was a pretty equal talent gap, if you will, or a lack of talent gap, I suppose, in that football game. Michigan won because they were more physical, and they brought the edge. And it looked to me now, watching this game the last couple of seasons, that Ohio State kind of rolled out there and expected to win, but maybe not in the way that you would want your football team to expect to win. Like Ohio State, before these last couple of games, had, owned this series, really, for the last decade or so. Like it was, every single year that game rolls around and you're like, okay, Ohio State, how many are they going to hang on Michigan this game? How much are they going to win by? And it felt almost like Ohio State at a certain point in time kind of inherited this sort of belief that like we are unbeatable against Michigan. And I didn't see that same edge from Ohio State when Michigan was taking it to them these last couple of seasons. I didn't see that same sense of pride or that anger, that chip on the shoulder that you would hope you would see from an Ohio State football team. College football sickos, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. game predictions like this one, analysis, signing day around the corner, make sure you're locked in. This show brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Free pick for Thanksgiving weekend. You got Tyreek Hill, 99% off. He gets a half-yard receiving. That cashes. Pair it with another square. You're off to the races. So use code HARDCOUNT. Playing $5 in lineups gets you $50 in promo funds. Again, over at prizepicks.com using code HARDCOUNT. Now back to the prediction. The thing that I love, though, about this Ohio State football team, that edge is there. I mean, they don't just have a chip on their shoulder. They got a full bag of Frito-Lays on the shoulder, man. Like Will Howard, I said it yesterday on my socials, the cigarette celebration against Indiana, I love that, dude. I love that from my quarterback. Because if my quarterback is talking smack during the game to the opposing head coach through what his celebration is, and he's talking smack before the Penn State game saying they didn't want me, we'll see if I'm good enough to play there. Like, yeah, there's such a thing as too much emotion. But I love my quarterback having that edge to him, because if my quarterback has that edge, what do you think the defensive line and the offensive line are feeling like? What temperature do you think the secondary is rolling with? What the receiver and the running backs? Like, if my quarterback, the guy who, on paper at least, shouldn't be the most physical specimen on my football team, shouldn't be dealing out shoulders, like, what else is the rest of the team looking like? And I think that's reflective of who your football team is. Ryan Day, same deal, man. Again, you could have a discussion about sportsmanship and should you punch it in the end zone when you're in victory formation. That's a discussion that's reasonable to have. But Ryan Day, again, like, he's been through the ringer here a little bit, both from his own fan base and from the college football public. People calling for his job when he goes 11-1 and loses one football game. Like, he's battered and bruised a little bit, I have to believe. And so the whole mantra they've had this year of leave no doubt, it'll be a leave no doubt situation for Ohio State in this game. Mark my words. I mean, it'll be the exact same thing that we saw at the end of the game against Indiana, but I think dialed up probably 100%, 200%, whatever you want to call it. They will not take their foot off the gas. And so in this spot now, we spoke to the matchup of Michigan in the trenches and what they could do, and you know, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and what they can have potential to do. I think it's the Will Howard day. I really do. Now, I think you got to be physical and run the football, but I do think that Jeremiah Smith, especially if there is no Will Johnson in this football game, he's the best player on the field. Throw it up to him. Let him go be great. Emeka Egbuka, have his day. And if you get up 14-0 on Michigan, that's a game, set, match. Not saying anything about Michigan and their internal competitiveness or how they feel about themselves and them giving up. Not what I'm saying. But at that point in time, that Michigan offense, they're not catching Ohio State. They're not. So I think Ohio State wins. With it being Ohio State-Michigan, I don't love the idea of taking a number here, but if you gave me, if you forced me to pick, I would take Ohio State to cover. So Ohio State wins, Ohio State covers, and there will be a reckoning of sorts for the Buckeyes for these last couple of years not beating Michigan. Ryan Day speaking to this week, losing to Michigan being one of the worst things to happen to him in his life. He compared it to, or put it in the same category of him losing his father. Like, there will be real reckoning here from Ohio State with what they do against Michigan, again, in Columbus. I can't wait to watch what happens pregame there, because I have to believe it's going to be very, very chippy. I think Ohio State's got him. I think Ohio State knows they got him too. And so when you got someone that has been a thorn in your side, down and dead to rights, like, you're going to take every opportunity to make sure you chirp at them and let them know going into that one. You know what Michigan needs here? Michigan needs the Connor Stallions special. I'm not talking about sign stealing. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about Connor Stallions rewriting the NCAA rule book and says, hey, Coach Moore, I know I'm not on staff anymore, but good news. Found a loophole. Bryce Underwood can play this week. Bryce Underwood, you're in the game. Maybe things change. I'm just saying. Could be worth keeping a pulse on.